Zuri's hand shook so violently, the gold fountain pen nearly tore through the marriage certificate. Just inches away, beneath the cold glass of the open casket, lay Chairman Bay, the most ruthless, feared underworld king in Seoul. And as of 10 seconds from now, her legal husband. "Sign it," his nephew hissed, pressing the cold barrel of a gun into her spine. "Or we start selling your little brother's organs tonight." The mausoleum smelled of lilies and gunpowder. She squeezed her eyes shut, a single tear dropping onto the parchment, and signed her name, legally binding her life to a corpse. Before we find out what happens when the dead man wakes up, drop your city or country in the comments below. I want to see exactly where in the world you are watching this story from tonight. And if you love a story about dangerous secrets, unexpected romance, and the ultimate revenge, hit that subscribe button right now, because this one is going to take your breath away. Let us begin. Zuri never wanted anything to do with the criminal underworld. For 6 months, her entire existence had been confined to the sterile, brightly lit hallways of the Seoul National Medical Research Center. She was a brilliant woman who had traveled all the way from Nigeria on a highly competitive medical fellowship, spending her days over microscopes and blood panels, trying to find solutions to the diseases that had taken her own mother years ago. But brilliance in a laboratory did not easily translate into financial stability in one of the most expensive cities in the world. She worked double shifts, took on cleaning duties, did whatever it took so that her younger brother, Kalu, could pay his university tuition. Kalu was all she had left in the world. When their parents passed away, she had promised him they would always look out for each other, no matter what it took. Then Kalu made a mistake that changed everything. Desperate to help Zuri with their late mother's lingering medical bills, he took a loan, not from a bank, but from men who operated in the shadows of the city. The interest compounded at an impossible rate. The men who owned the debt were nephews of Chairman Bay, men who wore immaculate suits and operated with the cruelty of street thugs. When Kalu couldn't pay, they framed him for embezzlement within their own illegal operations, hanging a $10 million debt over his young head. A few days later, they came for Zuri, cornering her in a dimly lit hospital parking lot at the end of a 14-hour shift, rain pouring down through her thin coat. Jitae, the eldest nephew with a cruel, calculating smile, threw a stack of photographs at her feet. Kalu tied to a chair, bruised and terrified. He offered her a choice that was not really a choice at all, her brother's life in exchange for her signature. Chairman Bay, the legendary head of the syndicate, had just been declared dead, officially a heart attack, though whispers in the underworld claimed poison. The old man had been notoriously paranoid, locking his vast offshore billions behind a biometric trust that legally required the presence of a surviving spouse to unlock. The nephews needed a widow, a disposable, untraceable widow they could force into a ghost marriage, use to open the accounts, and quietly dispose of before sunrise. Zuri was perfect, a foreigner with no powerful connections, desperate enough, and she loved her brother enough to walk into her own grave to save him. The heavy iron doors of the mausoleum slammed shut behind her, the deadbolt clicking into place. She was alone with the dead chairman until midnight, when the accounts would transfer into her name. Zuri collapsed against the casket, her legs finally giving out from the sheer terror of it all. The tomb was suffocating, the air thick and cold with the scent of white lilies. She lifted her head and looked at the man beneath the glass. Even in death, Chairman Bay held a striking aura of power, silver threading his dark hair, a flawless tailored suit. He did not look like the monster the city claimed him to be. He looked like a man who had carried the violent weight of the world until it finally crushed him. She placed a trembling hand on the glass above his chest. Her studies in anatomy gave her an intimate understanding of how a body shuts down. But looking at him, she felt no fear of the corpse, only a profound sadness for them both. Two people trapped in a cold room, betrayed by the ones who should have protected them. "I am so sorry," she whispered into the echoing room, her voice cracking. "I know you do not know me, I know I do not belong here in your family tomb, but your nephews are going to destroy everything you spent your life building. They are going to kill my brother, and then they are going to kill me. I wish you could stop them. I wish I was strong enough to stop them myself." She cried for a long time, for Kalu, who would never walk a graduation stage, for the research she'd never finish, for the lonely, terrifying end to her life in a foreign country, married in name to a dead man surrounded by traitors. Then a faint, mechanical hiss broke the silence. Not wind against stone, a pressure seal, releasing. The heavy glass lid of the casket shifted. Zuri froze completely, her heart hammering. A deep, raspy voice echoed from inside the silk-lined box. "Then stop crying and help me out of this box." She scrambled backward with a cry of shock, hitting the stone wall. Chairman Bay's hand, pale and trembling, gripped the edge of the casket. He pushed the lid further aside, the effort costing him everything, and turned his head to look at her. His eyes were dark, piercing, and entirely alive. "You are breathing," Zuri gasped, medical instinct warring with panic. "You have no pulse. The coroner declared you dead." "The coroner works for me," the chairman rasped, trying to sit up and falling back against the silk pillows, chest heaving. "A highly specialized neurotoxin. It slows the heart to an undetectable beat. It mimics death perfectly." The pieces clicked together in her analytical mind. "You faked your own assassination to see who would make a move for your throne." "My nephews," he confirmed, closing his eyes against a wave of nausea. "I needed to know if they were working with rival factions to bring me down. Now I know, and I know they dragged an innocent woman into their mess to steal my accounts." He opened his eyes and really looked at her. The tear stains, the shivering, the defiant set of her jaw. "You apologize to me. You are sitting here waiting to be murdered by my own flesh and blood, and you cried for my legacy. Why would you do that?" "Because nobody deserves to be betrayed by the people they love," Zuri said, voice shaking but honest. "Not even a mafia boss." A weak smile touched his mouth, and then a violent spasm racked his body. His breathing turned shallow and rapid, his skin clammy. Zuri recognized the signs instantly. The neurotoxin was wearing off, but the withdrawal was throwing his heart into a dangerous arrhythmia. He is going into cardiac distress, she thought. The fear evaporated, replaced by the relentless training of a doctor. She dropped to her knees beside the casket, pressed 2 fingers to his carotid artery, fluttering erratically, like a trapped bird. "Look at me," she ordered, her voice losing its tremble. "Keep your eyes on me. If you panic, your heart will stop for real, and I will not be able to bring you back." "I am not panicking," he managed through gritted teeth. The nephews had let her keep her handbag, assuming it held only tissues. They didn't know she'd come straight from a hospital shift, carrying her life-saving tools everywhere. She pulled out a compact emergency kit, drew a precise dose of epinephrine and beta blockers into a syringe. "This is going to sting," she said gently, injecting the medication into his arm. She placed both hands on his chest, feeling the terrifying thump of his heart beneath her palms, and counted out loud, "Steady. Breathe with my counting. In for 4, out for 6. Just focus on my voice." Slowly, the violent fluttering smoothed out. Color returned to his face. He never looked away from hers. "You are a very commanding woman when you want to be," he said, voice stronger now, the rasp softening into something deep and comforting. "I am a medical researcher. I fix things. It is what I do for a living." He pushed himself up and sat fully on the edge of the casket, looking at the marriage certificate resting on the altar nearby, her sweeping signature beside his forged one. "What is your name?" he asked. "Zuri." "Well, Zuri, my nephews plan to kill you at midnight. We have 4 hours to make sure that does not happen, but I am not strong enough to fight them yet. I need 24 hours for this toxin to clear my blood." He held out his hand. "I am offering you a deal. Play the terrified widow. When they come for you at midnight, follow their orders, but tell them the biometric scanner requires a 24-hour processing period for a new spouse. It is a complete lie, but Jite is ignorant enough about the banking software to believe it. It buys you one more day. And what about you? She asked, looking at his outstretched hand. You are going to sneak me into the estate's hidden panic room. There is a tunnel beneath this mausoleum that leads directly there. No one knows it exists but me. You will hide me, and tomorrow night, when they drag you to the boardroom to force your hand on that scanner, I will walk in and burn their entire world to the ground. Zuri stared at his hand. If the nephews suspected she was stalling, they'd kill her and Kalu without hesitation. But she saw no deception in his eyes, only a man who protected what was his. And legally, according to the paper on the altar, she was now his wife. If I do this, she said, finding her courage, you clear my brother's debt entirely. You let us both go far away from this city. I will do much more than that, Bay said, his voice dropping, soft and fierce. I will make sure the men who threatened you never breathe my city's air again. Follow my lead, Zuri, and tomorrow I will make you the Queen of Soul. She placed her hand in his. Getting him out of the casket was slow and agonizing. He leaned his weight against her, arm draped over her shoulders, and despite everything she was hyper-aware of his warmth, the scent of sandalwood and crisp fabric. He guided her to the back wall and pressed a sequence of stones. The wall ground open into a dark, narrow tunnel hidden from the world. You are very gentle for someone who was just held at gunpoint, he murmured in the dark. You are very talkative for a man who was just dead, she replied, surprised by her own breathless laugh. The tunnel opened into a state-of-the-art panic room beneath the estate. Medical supplies, a bed, a small kitchen. Bay collapsed on the bed's edge, exhausted. Zuri found a towel, dampened it, and gently wiped the cold sweat from his forehead while he watched her with quiet wonder. Why did you become a doctor? He asked. She paused, an old grief passing over her features. My mother got sick when Kalu and I were young. The hospitals back home did not have the resources, and we did not have the money to send her anywhere else. I watched her fade away because we were poor. I promised myself I would learn to fix the things that break people. She offered a sad smile. I guess I am not doing a very good job right now. He caught her hand where it held the towel. You saved my life tonight, Zuri. You fixed a broken man when you had every reason to let him die. That makes you the best doctor I have ever known. The sincerity sent heat to her cheeks. She pulled back gently, suddenly aware that this dangerous, powerful man was, on paper, her husband. You should rest. The nephews will be at the mausoleum soon. I have to go pretend to mourn an empty box. I need to be convincing. My name is Sok, he said, as she turned toward the hidden door. If you are going to be my wife, even just for tonight, you should call me by my name. Rest well, Sok. She slipped back through the tunnel just moments before the mausoleum doors clanked open. She threw herself over the empty casket's edge, pulling the silk lining to obscure the missing body, forcing her shoulders to shake with sobs that quickly turned real, fueled by adrenaline and the size of the lie she was about to tell. Jite dragged her to her feet, hauled her into a waiting SUV, and shoved an encrypted tablet into her lap, the biometric lock to Chairman Bay's primary offshore trust glowing on the screen. Min-Soo, the other nephew, watched from the driver's seat. Place your hand on the screen, Jite barked, resting his gun casually on his knee, barrel pointed at her ribs. Do it quickly. Zuri remembered Sok's words. Play the terrified widow. Buy 24 hours. Her brother's life depended on her acting. She pressed her trembling palm to the glass. It scanned, flashed green, then a red bar crawled across the screen. Pending spousal verification protocol, mandatory 24-hour security hold initiated. Jite slammed his fist against the door. What is this? Why is it not unlocking? I do not know, Zuri said, shrinking back, voice small and panicked. The screen says it takes 24 hours to process a new spouse. I just signed it an hour ago. Minsu groaned from the front seat. The old man always was a paranoid bastard, a failsafe in case someone held a gun to his head to change the will. We wait, Minsu decided. Lock her in the guest wing. No phones, no contact. Tomorrow night, we bring her to the board meeting. Once the timer expires, she scans in front of the other bosses to legitimize the transfer. Then we kill her and tell everyone she died of grief. Jite leaned close, his breath foul. You better pray that timer ticks down fast, sweetheart. Because if we do not get that money tomorrow night, I will personally mail Kalu to you in small, bloody boxes. Zuri nodded frantically, letting real tears fall. Please, I just want my brother to be safe. I will do whatever you want. Just do not hurt him. The next day felt like an eternity, pacing the length of an opulent, suffocating guest room. Was Sok recovering? Was the toxin fully gone? If he didn't intervene tonight, she was walking into a slaughterhouse, and she'd take Kalu down with her. That night, guards flanked Jite, dressed now in a pristine tuxedo, arrogant and gleaming, as they marched her down the grand staircase toward the underground boardroom. She kept her head bowed, silently praying the dead man she'd saved was ready to burn their world down. Before the final mahogany doors, an older woman in a maid's uniform stepped into the corridor, bowing to Jite. The board members have requested the widow present herself with dignity. Allow me 3 minutes in the powder room. Fine. 3 minutes, Jite snapped, checking his watch. Do not try anything stupid, widow. The moment the powder room door shut, the maid's submissive posture vanished. She smiled warmly and gestured to a heavy velvet curtain. He is waiting for you. Behind the curtain stood Sok, no longer pale and struggling but dressed in a meticulously tailored charcoal suit, silver hair swept back, radiating absolute, undeniable power. The moment his eyes met hers, his hard expression melted into warmth. You look exhausted, he said. I was worried the toxin had not fully cleared, she breathed, stepping closer. You look completely different. You look terrifying. I look like the man you saved, he said, brushing a tear from her cheek. You bought me the time I needed, at great risk to yourself. Now it is my turn to keep my promise. He gestured to a garment bag, a breathtaking black and gold gown, and a heavy diamond necklace resting on a velvet cushion. My family has spent the last 2 days treating you like a pawn. Tonight, they will look at you and see the only person I trust with my life. Change quickly. The board is waiting for their queen. Zuri emerged moments later, the gown fitting her with striking, regal grace. Sok fastened the diamond necklace himself, his fingers brushing the nape of her neck, and a shiver ran through her that had nothing to do with fear. You are shaking, he murmured. I am terrified, she admitted, meeting his eyes in the mirror. What if they do not listen to you? He turned her gently to face him, took both her hands. They will not touch you, Zuri. When we walk through those doors, you do not look at the floor, you do not bow your head for anyone. You look at them exactly as you are. The woman who saved the king. She nodded. I am ready. Jite was pounding on the door when it opened. The words died in his throat when he saw her, chin high, diamonds flashing, the guards behind him staring in stunned silence. Where did you get those clothes? Jite stammered. Those belong to the family vault. They belong to my wife. A deep, lethal voice cut through the corridor. Sok stepped out of the shadows. Jite's face drained white. Uncle, the coroner said you were gone. The coroner is currently packing for a very long, very permanent vacation, Sok said calmly. And you are standing much too close to my wife. If your heart is pounding as hard as Zuri's right now, hit that like button, leave a comment telling me what you would do in this situation, and share this video with someone who loves a massive plot twist. Now let us see how the king reclaims his throne. Sok's men melted from the shadows and disarmed Jite's guards in seconds. In the boardroom below, 20 of Seoul's most powerful underworld figures froze mid-toast as Jitae was shoved to his knees on the floor and Sok stepped into the light. Several older bosses dropped to their knees. Min-soo's champagne glass shattered on the marble. "You all seem surprised," Sok said, voice echoing off the high ceilings. "Did you truly believe a little poison in my tea was enough to end me?" He seated Zuri beside him at the head of the table. "This is my wife. Her name is Zuri. She is not a pawn to be used for your banking tricks. She is the reason I am breathing tonight." His eyes turned cold on his nephews. "For 48 hours, you thought I was rotting in a box. You used my name, threatened an innocent woman, and tried to steal my legacy." "Uncle, please," Min-soo sobbed, crawling forward. "We were lied to. The rival faction forced us. Do not insult my intelligence while I am deciding your fate." Sok turned to Zuri. "They threatened your brother. They locked you in a tomb. What should we do with them?" She looked at the two men, now trembling on the floor. No longer terrifying, only small and pathetic. She did not want their blood on her hands. "Take everything they have," she said, her voice steady. "Strip their titles, their money, their power. Let them live, but make sure they can never hurt anyone again. Banish them." Sok smiled, proud. "You are far more merciful than they deserve, but your word is law in this house." He turned to his guards. "Empty their accounts. Take their properties. Drop them at the border, with nothing but the clothes on their backs." Later that night, on the balcony of Sok's penthouse, the city glittering below, a jacket settled over Zuri's shoulders. Kalu had already been quietly rescued, his debt erased, resting safely in a hotel under Sok's protection. "I bought the hospital," Sok said, as if mentioning a cup of coffee. "The paperwork finalizes by morning. I named you the new director of medical research. Unlimited budget. You are going to fix the things that break people, just like you promised your mother." "Sok, you cannot just buy a national research hospital. I am a mafia boss, sweetheart," he teased gently. "Buying hospitals is one of my more legal hobbies. It is a wedding gift." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you doing all of this? Your nephews are gone. You do not owe me anything. We are even." "I owe you my life," he said, cupping her cheek. "But more than that, I owe you for making me feel alive again. I have spent my life surrounded by people who only wanted my money or power. You did not know me, but your heart broke for me anyway. That kind of kindness does not exist in my world." He stepped closer. "I am hoping you will let me make the fake marriage a real one. I know my world is dark and complicated, but I promise you, if you stay by my side, I will spend the rest of my days making sure you never have to be afraid of anything again." "I am not afraid of your world, Sok," Zuri whispered, smiling. "I am just glad you are awake to share it with me. If you believe that true love can heal even the deepest wounds and bring light to the darkest places, comment a red heart below. Share this beautiful moment with a friend, and make sure you are subscribed to see how their beautiful new life together unfolds." He kissed her, sweet, reverent, sealed under the soul moonlight. It was the start of something entirely new. A few days later, Zuri stepped through the doors of the hospital she once scrubbed floors in, now its owner. The peace did not last long. A week after the boardroom, a black SUV plowed through the hospital's front entrance, tires screeching across the tile. 4 masked gunmen poured out, weapons trained not on the guards, but directly on Zuri. "Get down!" Jin, her assigned bodyguard, roared, tackling her behind the marble reception desk as bullets shredded the wall where she'd been standing. "They are moving in!" Jin shouted, popping up to return fire. Zuri, trained to save lives, not dodge bullets, spotted a fire extinguisher on the wall. She pulled the pin and blasted a wall of foam into the advancing gunmen's faces, blinding them long enough for Jin to take 2 down and force the rest into a screeching retreat. Sok tore through the wreckage moments later, his usual calm shattered by raw terror, and pulled her into a crushing embrace, trembling. "Are you hurt? Tell me where you're hurt." "I am fine, Sok. Jin kept me safe." "I should have been here," he murmured into her hair, guilt thick in his voice. "I was so focused on making you a queen that I forgot to protect my castle." That night, kneeling on the bedroom floor to clean a small scratch on her knee, he confessed he would rather walk away from everything than see her hurt again. Zuri slid down to meet him at eye level. "I signed that paper because I was forced to," she said, gripping his hands. "But I stayed with you in the panic room because I wanted to. I chose this life when I chose you. We walked into the dark together, holding hands." The attack traced back to Chairman Kwan, a rival syndicate leader who had supplied the original neurotoxin, hoping to destabilize the city, and who, realizing Sok was alive and the accounts untouched, had panicked and struck at his greatest weakness. Kalu, meanwhile, moved into the estate. Zuri found him and Sok in the kitchen days later, Kalu eyeing a sniper stationed on the garden roof with bewilderment. "I just do not understand why there is a man with a rifle up there," he said. "You told me you got a promotion. You did not tell me you married a warlord." "He is not a warlord," Zuri laughed, wrapping her arms around Sok's waist. "He is just very protective of his family." Sok handed Kalu a mug of coffee. "I know this is not the quiet life you imagined for your sister, but she saved my life when no one else would. And I've sworn my life for hers. No one will ever lay a hand on either of you again." "As long as you make her happy," Kalu said, sipping his coffee. "That's all I care about, but if you ever break her heart, I'll figure out how to fight a guy with a sniper rifle." Sok laughed, deep and warm. "I accept those terms entirely." The moment was interrupted by Jin. A man from the hospital attack had been caught fleeing the city and was now seizing violently in the estate's medical bay. Zuri rushed downstairs. The estate physician, panicked, didn't know what to do. "His heart rate is spiking, pupils blown wide. He just started convulsing the moment we strapped him down," the physician said. Zuri flashed a penlight in the man's eyes, checked his nail beds, a telltale bluish-purple. "He was not attacked. He was poisoned." "Kwan poisoned his own man," Sok said grimly, "so he couldn't talk if captured." Zuri recognized it instantly, a lethal variant of the same neurotoxin Sok had once taken, engineered to trigger fatal arrhythmia. "If we do not counter it now, his heart will explode in his chest within 30 seconds. She grabbed magnesium sulfate and an antiarrhythmic from her own emergency stock, pushed it into his vein, and forced oxygen into his lungs. The machine screamed its warning for 10 agonizing seconds before the spikes began to widen and steady. "He is stable," Zuri breathed. The man, gasping through his oxygen mask, looked between Zuri and Sok. "Kwan gave me a pill, told me it was for anxiety. He tried to kill me." "Yes, he did," Sok said coldly. "But my wife just saved your life when your own boss threw you away. So tell me exactly where he is hiding." "The shipping yards. Pier 52. He's planning a strike on your southern territories tonight." The next morning, Sok dressed for war. Zuri knotted his tie with trembling hands. "I hate that you have to fight," she said. "The only way I can keep you safe is by removing the man trying to hurt you," he said. "Once Kwan is gone, the city will be quiet." He kissed her forehead. "You gave me a reason to want a future. Promise me you'll come back tonight." "I promise you, my beautiful wife, I will fight through hell to get back to you." That night, Sok's men stormed the warehouse under gunfire and flashbangs, dismantling Kwan's network from the ground up. He came home hours later, exhausted, his shirt stained with soot and a streak of blood at his shoulder. Zuri flew across the room into his arms. "You are bleeding," she said, pulling back to inspect the wound, her medical instincts flaring over her relief. "Sit down. Let me look at it." "It is just a graze. I am the director of a hospital and your wife," she said firmly. "You do not get to argue with me about medical care under my own roof." She cleaned and dressed the wound herself, while he watched her with quiet awe. "It is over," he told her. "Quan will never threaten this city, or our family, again. You do not have to look over your shoulder anymore." The days that followed settled into something Zuri never expected to find in the home of a mafia boss: peace. She cooked jollof rice and fried plantains in the estate's massive kitchen one afternoon, shooing the panicked private chefs out for the day. Sok found her there, dressed down in soft cashmere, and wrapped his arms around her from behind. "I am a man with no enemies left to fight, and a beautiful, brilliant wife cooking in my kitchen," he said. "I have every reason in the world to be charming today." Lunch with Kalu was loud and joyful. Sok listening intently to stories about university classes he'd quietly arranged with maximum discretion, treating Kalu like real family rather than a burden. That afternoon, Sok drove Zuri himself, no convoy, just the two of them, to an empty, raw penthouse floor in Gangnam with a breathtaking, unobstructed view of the Han River. "It is yours," he said. "The lower floors are becoming your private research lab, a place beyond the hospital, just for you. And this floor, I thought we could design together, a home built from scratch. The estate holds too many painful memories. I want somewhere filled only with light. With you. Sok, this is too much. Before you walked into that mausoleum, I had resigned myself to a cold, bitter end," he said, framing her face with his hands. "There is nothing in this world I will not give you. I want to wake up every morning in a house that smells like the food you cooked today, with you smiling across the table." "I love you," she whispered against his lips, the first time she'd ever said it. Sok went completely still, then pulled her tightly against his chest, his voice thick with emotion. "I love you, Zuri, more than my own life. I will never let you go." Weeks later, delivery men filled the hospital lobby with towering arrangements of orchids and roses, turning the sterile lobby into a fragrant garden. A card, in Sok's elegant handwriting, read, "Even when you are saving the world, do not forget to stop and smell the flowers. I am incredibly proud of you, today and always. Come home to me soon. Your husband." That night, Sok ran her a lavender bath, kneeling beside the tub to wash her tired shoulders with a soft sponge, listening intently as she told him about her day, the recovering patients, new research grants, Kalu's argument over a video game score, as though it were the most important story in the world. Curled against his chest afterward, she said quietly, "I think we should make sure one of the rooms in the new penthouse gets a lot of natural sunlight. For a home office? For a nursery?" The room went silent. Suk stopped breathing. "Zuri, are we?" "I ran the blood work myself today, to be sure," she said, tears of joy spilling over. "We are going to have a baby, Sok." He buried his face in her neck, his broad shoulders shaking with a sob he didn't try to hide. "Thank you," he wept. "Thank you, Zuri." He kissed her lips, her cheeks, her forehead. "I will give you both the entire world. I will build an empire of light just for you and our child. No darkness will ever touch you." 6 months later, sunlight poured through the finished penthouse, painted now in warm creams and gold, free of the shadows that had haunted the old estate. In the nursery, Zuri rested her hands on the noticeable curve of her stomach, while Sok arrived from a board meeting holding 2 absurdly expensive stuffed bears. For options, "You cannot keep buying the entire store every time you shop for one baby item," Zuri laughed. "It's a sound investment," he said, tossing the bears into the crib and wrapping his arms around her from behind, feeling their daughter kick beneath his palms. "How are you feeling today? You need to rest, Zuri. You work too much." "The board approved the new pediatric wing," she said. "I just wanted the plans finalized before maternity leave." That afternoon, at the hospital, Zuri found a wealthy shareholder berating her staff over a VIP room, threatening to have the department restructured. He looked her up and down and dismissed her instantly. "Go check on a patient, doctor, and let the adults handle this." "I am the administration," Zuri said, calm and unmoving. In this building, we triage patients based on medical necessity, not bank account balances. He stepped closer, using his height to intimidate her, threatening to have her license revoked. You do not know who you are talking to, and you do not know who you are standing in front of. The hallway outside went suddenly deathly silent. Seok walked in, flanked by 4 of his men, radiating a stillness more terrifying than any threat. He placed a protective hand on the small of Zuri's back. Is there a problem here? He asked, quiet and polite, which made it worse. The man's face drained of color. Chairman Bay, I apologize. I had no idea this facility was under your protection. It is not under my protection, Seok said coldly. It belongs to my wife, the woman you were just screaming at. The man fled, bowing repeatedly. Once he was gone, Seok's expression melted into warmth. You handled that beautifully, my love. I had it under control, Zuri said, smiling. I know you did. But I missed you. Besides, I deeply love watching you put arrogant men in their place. It is incredibly attractive. That night, kneeling on the rug, Seok massaged her swollen ankles with lavender lotion. You work too hard, he murmured. You're a total hypocrite, she said. You run a syndicate and barely sleep 3 hours a night. I sleep perfectly fine, as long as you're next to me. He rested a hand on her belly and felt their daughter kick. She's going to be a fighter, just like her parents. She takes after her father. No, he said softly. She takes after her mother. She's going to be brilliant and kind and heal everyone around her. She will be the best parts of you. He pressed his lips to her forehead. I spent 40 years building an empire out of fear and violence. I thought my legacy would just be blood and bank accounts. And then you walked into that tomb. You were never just a monster, Seok, Zuri told him, tracing the scar along his jaw. You just needed someone to love you enough to let the real you into the light. 2 months later, Zuri woke sharply in the night, gripping the duvet as a contraction tore through her. Seok, the light sleeper decades of paranoia had made him, was awake instantly. Zuri, is it time? My water just broke. We need to go now. For the first time since she'd met him, the terrifying Chairman Bay looked entirely out of his depth, throwing on sweatpants, barking orders at Jin, abandoning his usual composure entirely. He carried her to the elevator, where the armored SUV waited, engine running. Through the blur of neon lights and screeching tires, Seok held her hand so tightly she thought her bones might crack. She squeezed back with equal force, grounding herself in him, murmuring soft, desperate encouragement, pressing kisses to her sweaty forehead through every contraction. At the hospital, the luxury delivery suite Seok had prepared months in advance was waiting. He refused to leave her side through 4 hours of labor, wiping her face, whispering how proud he was of her. As the sun rose over Seoul, painting the sky pink and gold, a newborn's cry filled the room. Congratulations, the doctor said. You have a beautiful, perfectly healthy baby girl. Seok sank to his knees beside the bed, his powerful hands trembling as he touched his daughter's tiny fingers, tears streaming down the face of the ruthless underworld king, every wall he'd ever built shattering at once. She is absolutely perfect, he choked out, pressing his face into Zuri's shoulder. We did it, Seok, she whispered. We built a family. 3 years later, cherry blossoms drifted through the warm air of the estate's gardens. Seok, dressed casually in linen, chased a giggling 3-year-old across the lawn in a bright yellow sundress, catching her and spinning her until she collapsed against his chest, breathless with laughter. Kalu sat nearby with a law textbook he wasn't reading, amused by how easily his niece commanded the most feared man in the city. Seok settled onto the picnic blanket beside Zuri, their daughter Nari playing with wooden blocks between his legs. What are you thinking about? Zuri asked, catching his gaze. A cold, dark room a few years ago, he said. I was ready to let the world end, and then a woman walked in and cried for me. He leaned closer, his eyes full of unwavering devotion. You saved my life, Zuri. But more than that, you gave me a life worth saving. Zuri looked at her brilliant brother preparing to graduate, her daughter laughing in her husband's lap, and the man who had torn down his entire dark world just to build her a kingdom of light. I guess forcing you to marry me was the best mistake those men ever made, she whispered. Sok laughed, deep and warm, and kissed her softly as the afternoon sun wrapped them both in gold. I could not agree more, my queen. If this story made you believe that light can always conquer the dark and that true love is worth fighting for, please leave a comment down below with your favorite moment. Do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another beautiful love story. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.